The air conditioner in the corner of the office hummed with a broken, rattling sound, but the room felt suffocatingly hot. It was the kind of heat that made your shirt stick to your back, but I was freezing. My hands were not shaking from fear. They were vibrating with pure, unadulterated adrenaline. I stood in front of the massive mahogany desk, staring at the man who held my career in his manicured hands. I had just asked a simple, logical question. I wanted to know why Ottilie, a girl who thought a pivot table was a literal piece of furniture, had been handed the director role I was promised 2 years ago. Caius didn't even look up from his phone at first. He kept scrolling, his thumb flicking against the glass, making me wait. When he finally did look up, he leaned back in his leather chair, kicking his expensive loafers up onto the desk. He laughed, a dry, dismissive sound that grated on my nerves like sandpaper. "Sarina, look at you," he sneered, gesturing vaguely at my sensible blazer and practical shoes. "You are a workhorse, not a show pony. Ottilie has the look we need for the brochure. You are the engine, not the hood ornament. Clients want to see youth and style, not just efficiency." He paused, waiting for me to apologize for asking. He expected me to shrink away. When I didn't, his eyes narrowed into cold slits. "If you don't like it, quit. Walk out that door right now. Go ahead. See how far you get in this town without my reference. I made you, and I can break you." The room went dead silent. The rattling AC seemed to stop. I looked out the window behind him. I looked at the massive glass tower across the street, the headquarters of our biggest client. "Okay," I whispered. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I simply turned around, walked to my desk, placed my cactus and my singular glass award in a cardboard box, and left the building. My name is Sarina. As I walked to the elevator, my heart was pounding against my ribs like a trapped bird, but my mind was terrifyingly clear. Caius had forgotten something crucial. He forgot that before I was his employee, I was the savior of his entire existence. He forgot that I was the one who fixed his biggest mistake when he was a nobody with a failing business. 5 years ago, I was just a junior project manager, fresh out of school and eager to please. Caius's firm, Caius Design, was gasping for air, teetering on the absolute brink of bankruptcy. He had completely messed up the zoning permits for the Skyline project. It was a rookie mistake. He had misread the city map, and it was going to cost the firm everything. The lawsuits were already drafted. I didn't sleep for 3 nights. I lived on vending machine coffee that tasted like burnt water and stale donuts from the corner store. I combed through thousands of pages of city code until my eyes burned and my vision blurred. Finally, at 4:00 a.m. on a Tuesday, I found it, a tiny, overlooked loophole in the historical preservation addendum that allowed us to proceed. That discovery saved the company $50 million. When I presented it to him back then, I didn't ask for a raise. I didn't ask for a promotion. I just asked for loyalty. I thought that if I proved I was valuable, he would treat me with respect. I was young, and I was naive. I built the foundation he was standing on, and today he decided to kick me off of it because he preferred a show pony. Over the last 5 years, I became what people in the industry called the shadow CEO. While Caius was the face of the company, shaking hands and smiling for cameras, I was the brain and the spine. Clients didn't want to talk to him anymore. They wanted to talk to me. While Caius was out playing golf on Tuesdays or taking long lunches that turned into early happy hours, I was the one handling the catastrophes. I managed the vendors who were angry about late payments, smoothing over ruffled feathers with promises and charm. I balanced the budgets that Caius blew on expensive office furniture we didn't need. I handled the legal compliance that kept us from getting sued by the city. I was the first one in the office in the morning, unlocking the doors, and the last one to turn off the lights at night. Caius knew this. He knew exactly how much I did. That is why he kept dangling the carrot in front of my face. "Next year, Sarina," he would say with a charming, fake smile. "Next year you get equity. Next year you make partner. Just get us through this quarter. Just one more big job." I believed him because I loved the work. I loved the buildings, the blueprints, and the feeling of creating something from nothing. I ignored the red flags because I was wearing rose-colored glasses. I called it dedication. In reality, I was wearing golden handcuffs, and Caius held the key, laughing every time I asked to be unlocked. 3 months ago, the atmosphere in the office shifted. Caius called a mandatory meeting to introduce a new team member. Her name was Ottilie. She was the daughter of a minor investor, a man Caius was desperate to impress to get more funding. She was 24 years old, fresh out of a fashion school, and had zero experience in architecture, engineering, or project management. "She has ideas," Caius told me privately, patting me on the shoulder. "She wants to focus on the vibes of the buildings. Less math, more feeling. She represents the future." I stared at him, wondering if he was joking. Architecture is math. If you don't do the math, the building falls down and kills people. But Caius didn't care about safety. He cared about image. He told me to train her. He said she was going to be my assistant, but it felt more like I was her babysitter. I tried my best. I really did. But Ottilie didn't take notes. She sat in meetings scrolling through TikTok on her phone with the volume up, disturbing everyone. When I took her to site inspections, she refused to wear a hard hat because it flattened her bangs. She insulted the contractors, calling them dirty to their faces, and complained about the dust. She was a nightmare, but Caius treated her like a princess. He was charmed by her youth and her father's money, and I was left to clean up her toxic messes. The breaking point began to form earlier this week. I had been preparing the final pitch for Hawk, the billionaire developer who owned the massive tower across the street. This was the contract of the decade. It was the kind of project that could put a firm on the map forever or destroy it completely. I had spent months working on the proposal, calculating every beam and bolt. The night before the presentation, I logged onto the server to do a final check of the files. I wanted to make sure the fonts were correct, but the files were gone. The entire folder containing the blueprints, the budget analysis, and the 3D renderings was missing from the shared drive. Panic, cold and sharp, washed over me. I ran to the break room and found Ottilie making a green smoothie. "Did you move the Hawk files?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, though my heart was hammering. Ottilie smirked, taking a sip of her drink. "Oh, yeah, I organized them. They were messy, so I deleted the old versions and put the new ones in a folder on my desktop." "You did what?" I gasped. "Those weren't old versions, that was the final work. I spent 3 weeks on those renderings." She shrugged, unbothered. "Oops, well, I'm sure you can figure it out. You're smart like that." I had to rebuild the entire presentation from memory. I worked for 6 hours straight, my eyes blurring, fueled only by panic and hatred. The morning of the pitch, I was exhausted. I had dark circles under my eyes that makeup couldn't hide, and my hands were shaking from too much caffeine and lack of sleep. But I was ready. I had the deck, and I knew the numbers inside and out. I knew I could sell this. Caius stopped me at the door of the conference room. He looked me up and down with a frown, brushing invisible dust off his lapel. "Sarena, you look tired. You look like a mess. You'll scare the client." I was up all night fixing Ottilie's mistake. I snapped, my patience gone. "It doesn't matter," Caius said, blocking my path with his arm. "Ottilie will present the deck. She looks fresh. She has the energy we need. You just sit in the back and take notes." I protested, feeling a lump form in my throat. "She doesn't know the numbers. She doesn't understand the structural load. She will embarrass us." "Sit down, Sarena," Caius hissed, his voice dropping to a menacing whisper. "Sit down, or you're fired right here in the hallway." I sat. I watched in horror as Ottilie presented my work. She fumbled through the slides. She misquoted the budget by millions of dollars. She flirted with Hawk, giggling when she didn't know an answer. Hawk looked unimpressed, his face like stone. But at the end, he signed the deal. He signed it only because he knew Caius's firm held the permits I had secured. I expected Caius to apologize after the meeting. I expected him to acknowledge that I had saved the deck again, even if I wasn't allowed to present it. I waited for him to call me into his office, pour me a drink, and thank me for my sacrifice. Instead, Caius called an all-hands team meeting in the main lobby. He stood on a chair, beaming like a king. "I have a big announcement," he shouted. "We got the Hawk contract, and I am announcing our new creative director, Ottilie." The room erupted in applause. My stomach dropped to the floor. I felt physically sick. I looked around, feeling dizzy. My eyes landed on Lennox, my work husband. Lennox was the guy I had trained from an intern. I had saved his job 3 times when he messed up measurements. I expected him to be outraged. I expected him to stand up and say something. Lennox avoided my eyes. He looked at the floor, then started clapping. He clapped the loudest of anyone, desperate to please the new boss. Later, as the team celebrated with champagne I wasn't offered, Lennox whispered to me, "Sorry, Soar. Audley promised me your corner office if I supported her. You know how it is. I have loans to pay." That was the knife in my back. It wasn't just chaos. It was the culture I had helped build turning against me. That brings us back to the start. After the champagne toast, I stormed into Chaos's office. The conversation from the first chapter happened. He called me a workhorse. He told me to quit. But as I stood there, looking at him lean back in his chair, something snapped. It wasn't a snap of anger or rage. It was a snap of clarity. I realized I was not building a career here. I was building Chaos's retirement fund. I was the one making him rich while he treated me like dirt. When he said, "If you don't like it, quit," I realized he truly believed I was trapped. He thought I was too scared to leave. He thought I needed him more than he needed me. He thought I was weak. He was wrong. I realized I held the keys to the kingdom. I knew the passwords, the compliance codes, the hidden defects, and the legal loopholes. Chaos didn't know any of it. He didn't even know where the files were saved. I walked out of the building with my box. The sun was bright, and the air smelled like freedom. I looked at the Hawk Tower across the street. I wasn't just leaving, I was going to war. I walked across the street, dodging the heavy city traffic, and entered the massive glass lobby of the Hawk Tower. I wasn't there for a job interview. I didn't have a resume in my hand. I was there because Hawk, the billionaire, had texted my personal number 10 minutes after the disastrous presentation. The text read, "Great slides, wrong presenter. When you're ready to leave the clowns, come see the circus master." I swiped a security badge I had from the permit meetings, one I had kept in my pocket for emergencies, and took the private elevator to the penthouse. Hawk was waiting for me. He was a man who didn't waste time. He stood by the window, looking down at Chaos's tiny office building. He didn't offer me a job as an architect. He turned to me and said, "I hired Chaos because of you. I saw who prepared the documents. I saw who knew the answers when that girl was giggling. Now that you're here, I don't need Chaos, but I have a contract with him I can't break. Yet, I want you to be my director of owner oversight. You will manage Chaos." I smiled. It was the perfect revenge. I wouldn't just be Chaos's competition, I would be his boss. Monday morning arrived with a storm of confusion at Chaos Design. I wasn't there to see it, but I knew exactly what was happening. My desk was empty. The cactus was gone. The stapler was gone. The only thing left was a layer of dust and the silence of my absence. Panic set in immediately. Audley couldn't find the vendor list for the new project because she had never bothered to learn the server structure. Lennox couldn't access the budget codes because I was the only one with the administrative password, and I hadn't written it down. The phones were ringing off the hook, and no one knew how to transfer the calls to the right departments. Chaos laughed it off at first. "Let her sulk," he told the team, sipping his coffee and reading the sports news. "She's dramatic. She'll be back begging for her job by Friday when she realizes no one else will hire her. She needs us." At 9:30 a.m., an email pinged in Chaos's inbox. It was from the client, Hawk's firm. Subject, new project lead. Body, please welcome your new point of contact for the Hawk Tower project. All invoices, approvals, and communication must go through her effective immediately. Her name is Sarana. Chaos read the email. He choked on his coffee, coughing so hard he spilled it on his white shirt. He stared at the screen, blinking rapidly. Sure that he was hallucinating, or that it was a prank. He grabbed his phone, his fingers trembling, and called Hawk immediately. "Mr. Hawk, there must be a mistake," he stammered into the receiver. "Sarana, she was just a low-level employee here. She quit. She's unstable. You can't hire her." Hawk was on speakerphone, his voice booming and clear, filling Chaos's office. She's not your employee anymore, Caius. She is your boss. She represents the money. She represents me. You answer to her now. There was a long, icy pause. Be nice, Caius, Hawk added, his voice dropping to a cold, dangerous tone. Or I pull the funding and sue you for breach of contract. Do exactly what she says. The line went dead. Caius slowly lowered the phone. He looked at Ottilie, who was applying lip gloss in the corner. He looked at Lennox, who was pale as a sheet. We are screwed, Caius whispered, sinking into his chair. On Tuesday, I returned to my old office building. But this time, I wasn't walking in through the side door with a heavy bag of blueprints and a coffee for Caius. I was walking through the front entrance, the automatic doors sliding open for me. I was flanked by 2 large security guards provided by Hawk. I wasn't wearing my old workhorse cardigan and sensible slacks. I was wearing a tailored Italian suit that cost more than Ottilie's car, and my heels clicked sharply on the tile floor. I walked past the reception desk, ignoring the stairs, and went straight into the conference room where Caius, Ottilie, and Lennox were sitting. They looked terrified. I didn't yell, I didn't gloat. I simply sat at the head of the table, Caius's usual spot. He stood awkwardly to the side, shifting from foot to foot, unsure of what to do. Good morning, I said, opening my laptop and connecting it to the screen. Let's review the compliance logs. I want to see the progress report for the last 48 hours, and I want it now. The room was silent. I looked at them with a terrifying level of professionalism. I was untouchable, and they knew it. I knew where the bodies were buried because I was the one who had helped bury them, legally, of course. I knew every shortcut Caius liked to take, but I also knew that since I left, Caius had been sloppy. He had cut corners that were illegal. I looked at Ottilie, who was trying to look busy. Please provide the material safety data sheets for the insulation you ordered yesterday, I said calmly. Ottilie blinked, her mouth opening slightly. The what? The MSDS, I repeated, enunciating every letter. It's a federal requirement. You ordered the materials, so you must have the sheets. It proves the materials aren't toxic. I thought the vendor handled that, she stammered, looking at Caius for help. I pulled out a red notebook and made a note. The sound of my pen scratching the paper was the only noise in the room. Strike 1, I said, my voice flat. Incompetence. We cannot build a billion-dollar tower with toxic insulation. Caius was sweating. Sarina, come on, we're family, don't be like this. We can find the papers. I'm not family, Caius, I said without looking up. I'm the client representative, and you are late on your deliverables. I implemented a new policy immediately. 0 tolerance for error. In the past, I would fix their mistakes quietly in the background, saving their reputations. Now I highlighted them with a spotlight. Every time Ottilie messed up a measurement, which happened daily, I issued a formal cure notice. This is a serious legal threat in the construction world. It means the contractor has a specific amount of time to fix a breach of contract or they get fired. If they received 3 notices in a week, Hawk could void the entire contract without paying a penalty. It was a noose around their necks. Caius was terrified. He was forced to do Ottilie's work himself to save the contract. He was working 14-hour days, running around the site with a hard hat. He looked aged and miserable. He was doing the grunt work he used to dump on me, and he was failing at it miserably. One afternoon, Lennox cornered me in the hallway near the restrooms. He looked exhausted. His tie was crooked, he hadn't shaved, and he had deep bags under his eyes. He looked like a man on the edge of a breakdown. Sore, please, he whispered, looking over his shoulder to make sure Caius wasn't watching. You have to stop this. Caius is taking it out on us. I haven't slept in 2 days. He's making me redo all the CAD drawings by hand because he doesn't trust the computer. Help me. I looked at him. This was the boy I had mentored. The boy who I had taught how to read a blueprint. The boy who had betrayed me for a corner office. You wanted my office, Lennox, I said coldly. Now you have the workload that comes with it. I told you it wasn't easy. You thought I just sat there. But I didn't know, he pleaded, his voice cracking. That's not my problem, I said, walking away. Enjoy the view from the corner window. I hear the sunset is nice. Caius, desperate to escape my pressure, tried to bypass me. He contacted Hawk directly and invited him out for drinks to smooth things over. He wanted to charm the client, just like he used to do in the old days. He thought he could smile his way out of this. I anticipated this. I told Hawk to accept the invitation. At the dinner, while Caius was laughing and ordering expensive wine, Hawk leaned in, his face serious. So, Caius, tell me about the load-bearing limits of the North Truss. Sarina mentioned there might be a variance in the steel quality. Caius froze. He had no idea. He had always relied on me to know the technical specs. He tried to bluff. Oh, it's fine, it's standard, very strong, the best steel. Hawk slammed his hand on the table, making the silverware jump. Sarina briefed me this morning. The limit is 50 tons. You just lied to me, Caius. The dinner ended in humiliation. Caius was exposed as a fraud in front of the man paying his bills. He left the restaurant sweating and shaking. I decided to dig deeper. I audited the financial records of the project. I requested every invoice for the last 3 months. I wanted to see where every penny was going. What I found was shocking, even for Caius. There were invoices for high-grade Italian marble that was billed to the client at $50,000. But when I checked the site logs, the marble was never installed. Instead, cheap laminate that cost $5,000 had been used. I traced the money. Caius had been skimming the difference, $45,000, to pay for Ottilie's consulting fees and his own gambling debts. This wasn't just incompetence anymore, it was fraud. It was criminal. I sat in my office across the street, looking at the evidence on my screen. I had a choice. I could destroy the company immediately, which would hurt the innocent staff members like the receptionists and interns. Or I could surgically remove the cancer. Late that night, I received an anonymous email. The subject line was blank. Attached were raw accounting files that I hadn't even asked for yet, files that proved the intent to defraud. The email body read, Caius is shredding documents tonight. He knows you're looking at the marble invoices. He is panicking. Thought you should know. It was from Calliope, the quiet receptionist. I had always been kind to her. I remembered her birthday when no one else did. I helped her when her car broke down. She was the only one in that office with a moral compass, and she was watching everything. My heart raced. If he destroyed the evidence, I couldn't prove the fraud in court. I needed to act now. I called Hawk immediately. We need to secure the site. Now, he is destroying evidence. As the building owners, we had the legal right to enter the premises for an emergency inspection at any time. We drove to the office at midnight. The streets were empty, and the building was dark, except for a faint glow coming from Caius's office. We walked in, using my master key. The sound of the industrial shredder was loud in the quiet building. It sounded like a mechanical beast chewing on bones. Caius was feeding stack after stack of paper into the machine, sweating profusely. Obstruction of an audit, Caius, I said, flipping on the light switch. That's a felony. Caius froze. He dropped the papers. He looked at me, really looked at me, and for the first time he didn't see a workhorse. He saw the woman he had underestimated. He saw his end. I snapped a photo of him standing there with the shredder. The next morning, Caius tried to bargain. We were in a private meeting room at Hawk's Tower. He looked defeated, his eyes red from crying. I'll give you 50% of the firm, he pleaded, his hands shaking on the table. I'll fire Ottilie. I'll promote you to partner. I'll give you everything you wanted. Just make this go away. Don't go to the police. I laughed. It was a genuine laugh, loud and clear. Caius, I don't want 50% of a sinking ship. Your reputation is ruined, and I don't want your money. Then what do you want? He cried, desperate. I want the license, I said calmly. I want you to surrender your architectural license to the board, and I want you to sign over the project rights to me. I revealed my endgame. I didn't want to work for Hawk forever. I wanted to start my own firm. I wanted to take over this project under my own banner. While Caius was trying to negotiate his life away, Ottilie realized the ship was sinking. In a panic to save her own image as an influencer, she turned on him. She went on social media and posted a day in the life video. In the video, she ranted about how toxic her boss was and how she was a victim. But she was careless. In the background of her video, she accidentally showed confidential blueprints that displayed the structural flaws they were hiding, the cheap steel, the fake marble. The video went viral within hours. The building commission saw it. They suspended Caius's firm's license pending an immediate investigation. Ottilie had accidentally hammered the final nail into the coffin. With the license suspended, the bank froze the company accounts. Paychecks bounced on Friday. The staff walked out. It was a mass exodus. People were carrying boxes, shouting and crying. Lennox tried to call me 10 times, leaving voicemail after voicemail begging for a job. "I can change," he said. "I'm a hard worker. I learned my lesson." I blocked his number. Loyalty is a currency, and he was bankrupt. He had made his choice when he clapped for Ottilie. However, I made one call. I called Calliope, the receptionist who had tipped me off. "I'm starting a new firm," I told her. "Sarena and Associates, I need an office manager who is honest. The pay is double what Caius gave you." She accepted on the spot, crying tears of relief. Hawk officially terminated the contract with Caius Design for breach of trust and gross negligence. Because I had already prepared the paperwork, he immediately handed the contract to my new LLC. I took over the lease of Caius's office space. It was poetic justice. I wasn't just taking the job, I was taking the building. I was taking the physical space where I had been disrespected for 5 years. I walked in on Monday morning to reclaim the space. The cleaners were removing the Caius Design sign from the wall. It fell with a loud crash, breaking into pieces on the floor. I stepped over it. I walked to the main office. Caius was there. He was packing a cardboard box, the exact same way I had done weeks ago. He looked broken. He had lost his license, his company, and his dignity. He looked 10 years older. "You ruined me," he spat, holding a picture frame of himself playing golf. I leaned against the door frame, crossing my arms. "You told me to quit if I didn't like it. I didn't like how you ran business, so I quit, and then I fixed it." He glared at me, his eyes red with hate. I pointed to the door. "If you don't like it, Caius, leave, and see how far you get without my reference." Caius left, dragging his feet. The office was quiet. The rattling AC had been fixed. I walked over to the big leather chair, the one he used to put his feet up on while I did all the work. I sat down. It was comfortable. I spun the chair around to face the window. I looked at the Hawk Tower across the street. It was magnificent, and now it was officially my project. I was going to build it the right way, with safety and integrity. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Ottilie. "Hey, I heard you're hearing. I'm a really quick learner and I know the project. Maybe we can get coffee. TTYL." I didn't even smile. I just pressed delete. I reached into my bag and pulled out my cactus. I placed it on the corner of the massive mahogany desk. It was exactly where it belonged. Fade to black.